Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Did we hit noon? I guess we did. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to have you on. Here in the office, just to make sure you know who's on this end, we have Laurel and Jason and myself. We're not going to do introductions with people on the phone. I think logistically that's awkward. But we have a number of people on the call right now. Anything else that we need to cover on this point other than?
Hello.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, actually, let me give you a couple of housekeeping things. For anyone who is joining us for the first time, we use GoToWebinar, which means that this is it's scheduled much more as a report out from us about everything that's going on, but we do want to encourage you guys to interact with us. So please use the question box on your toolbar with GoToWebinar. You can ask us questions at any point throughout the webinar, and we'll be happy to address those. Or if you have comments or things that you want to share, please let us know through that, because everybody's mic will be muted just to make sure that we don't have a lot of background noise. I've also added some handouts at the bottom of your toolbar for GoToWebinar. You'll see there's 4 handouts. We've tried to include the PowerPoints from previous meetings, but we also have included the PowerPoint in a PDF format of this meeting, which has the links that you can click on as we go along if you want to access any of the information that we'll be sharing. And then, Eric, I think what I'd like to do, since we are going to go through our agenda, you'll notice that one of the last items that we have is the opportunity for people to give us updates on any advocacy-related issues that are happening in your community. So I'd like to share a poll just to get everybody engaged early on to let us know if there's anything that you would like to share. We'll not be sharing it right now. It's just kind of a reminder for you guys that we will be doing so later in the webinar, and also a chance for you to kind of let us know if there's anything you want to let us know about. So I'll have that open for just another 30 seconds or so people can weigh in and let us know.
Okay, so moving on in the agenda, we're going to do our priority updates. So we have state IDs, decriminalization, and affordable housing. That is our standard fare. And we're going to kick things off with state IDs. What are the updates, Jason?
So there's a lot of irons in the fire, but a lot of things in limbo at the same time. The ID task force is working with both MDHHS and the Secretary of State to try to push forward meetings with both of those groups. There's been a meeting with both agencies earlier this year, and unclear where those outcomes are going. On the legislative front, with spring break having started, or summer break having started, again, everything's kind of on hold. The next meeting is going to be July 27th? Oh, that's decriminalization. Never mind.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry. Laurel put something up on the screen, and I saw a shiny thing and got distracted for a second. But the ID task force, I've been talking with the co-chairs of the ID task force about perhaps doing some meetings with key staffers during the summer break around the legislative initiatives that we've been discussing and talking about for the last couple months, and everybody seems on board with that. So hopefully during summer break we'll be able to get some sense of where things are going with the legislative initiatives that we've been working on. Very good.
All right, this is Laurel. I'll update you guys on the decriminalization subcommittee. We are meeting again on July 27th. We meet every other month. That is about an hour-long call at 10 a.m. So please let me know if you would like to join this call and participate. At this point, we're on a bit of a holding pattern. We are still trying to analyze the results of our client questionnaire, which we did statewide earlier this year. We didn't get as many responses as we want, so we will be going back out to communities and trying to get a larger response, probably in the fall. At this point, we have a couple activities this summer. It's very late notice, but there is a national forum that happens every summer on this issue. We were able to attend last year. I'm not able to attend this year. It's happening this week. But hopefully there will be some good things coming out of that I can share with the group and with the larger group interested in this topic. Nationally, there's just a lot of interest in trying to prevent the criminalization of homelessness. including some work that the National Law Center on Poverty and Homelessness, I believe, has put together a toolbox to help communities applying through the HUD-NOFA answer the questions about what actions they're taking in their community. And that webinar to present that toolbox is going to be happening on July 18th, I believe. That information just came out last week, so I don't have it on the webinar, but it is shared on our social media. So please look to that if you'd like to register for that webinar, or contact me afterwards. I'll send out that information. At the state level, we're also participating with Safe and Just Michigan, formerly CAPS, in some community forums that we'll have in July, August, and September in the communities of Detroit, Grand Rapids, and Flint, or Saginaw. They did a lot of, Safe and Just Michigan did some interviews over the past year with housing providers and stakeholders. And they'll be sharing the results of the interviews that they've conducted and the paper that they've written up. And they've asked to partner with MICA to convene these meetings and expand beyond just those who have participated with their interviews to have a larger community discussion among staff and service providers. So we will be doing that July 13th in Detroit as our first one, and we'll be sharing that information soon as well. So that's what we'll be doing over the next couple of months, and I encourage anyone who wants to participate in those activities or other issues to call in on July 27th. Email me, I'll get you added to the list. Affordable housing.
Okay, so affordable housing, we are actually making some interesting progress there. The last meeting, which was 2 months ago, we had talked about doing a survey because we have been engaged by a legislator's office around the issue of affordable housing, and they had already put a piece of draft legislation together, but they wanted to get more feedback about if they were going in the right direction or if they should be looking at other opportunities as well. And in the process of putting together the survey, Laurel and I realized that we really needed to do a focus group or focus groups first to get a better sense of what questions we should be asking on the survey. So we've actually done the first focus group with service providers this past week. We've got a second one coming up this Thursday. I believe we're all at capacity, so yeah, we're pretty close. So we're happy that we're getting the feedback or interest that we are. The conversation, the first focus group went much longer than anticipated, in a very good way. So once we're done with the service provider side, we're hoping that we can do something similar with at least one group of landlords, and that would probably be after the July, after the second or third week in July that we're looking at doing that. So interesting things going on that front. We'll obviously keep everybody posted. We're now thinking that the focus groups will actually inform the survey, which we'll likely be doing the third, the fourth week of July, depending on how we get how everything comes together. And we've also been asked if we'd be willing to do a survey for service providers and a survey for landlords, and it looks like that will likely happen. So. So we're thankful for all the interest that we've gotten so far, and please know that we are grateful and do appreciate the time that everybody has been devoting to letting us know about either participating or giving us feedback about the direction things should go. As just a kind of placeholder, back at Advocacy Day, we did have a conversation with our advocates as well as the legislators about holding a roundtable later this year. That has not been forgotten about. We're more interested in getting this information from service providers and landlords first so that we feel like we're a bit more informed about the issue of affordable housing, and we have some data that's Michigan specific that we can bring to the table and share with everybody as well. So we're anticipating fall that the roundtable will likely happen, but really just want to let everybody know that we haven't forgotten about it, and it is something that we want to see happen. We're just being very intentional about how we're proceeding with things at this point. So I see we have a question.
Yeah, Hannah, thank you for your comment about the Cleveland Housing Network on their lease to purchase project. That's something that you're recommending we look into on affordable housing and home ownership. That's not a project that we have looked into specifically, but thanks for letting us know. We'll add it to our list of things to be researching.
So I think that's it for affordable housing, unless, Laurel, you have anything to add?
No, I think that the Affordable Housing Subcommittee meets monthly at this point as a way for us to really understand what our priorities need to be within that and how we move forward. So again, we invite people to participate. Our next meeting is July 9th at 10 a.m. If you have not already been added to that email list, contact me and I'll put you on there. I think that we have a lot of moving pieces with affordable housing work right now. And we just want to make sure that we're getting the right voices to the table. So let us know if you want to participate. And as Hannah did, let us know if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns about any of this, any of the priorities, updates that we've given so far, or anything that we have moving forward. All right,
Okay.
so now we move on to state updates.
All right, so state updates. Wanted to start off by talking about appropriations. Some of you may be aware of what the recently adopted appropriations bill entails. Some of you may not. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. If you have some specifics that you want to know about that we may have some insight about, feel free to ask, but I didn't want to go too in-depth on what was happening with it because we could be here all day. One of the things I wanted to point out was food assistance program caseload adjustments. Just as an FYI, food assistance program is being reduced, but the caseloads are being projected downward pretty significantly, so the money budgeted for that is going down from, or going down by $415 million to the Department of Health and Human Services. They're expecting the caseload going down from 854,000 to 684,000. And I'm assuming that there's some work requirements or some other things that are going to be keeping people out of that program, but the significant reduction there. One area that I wanted to touch on, which is something that was new to us, has to do with runaway and homeless youth services contracts. We saw that there was actually $500,000 added to the budget this year. I was at a meeting of the Michigan Network for Youth and Families, who are the agencies largely that are the recipients of those funds for contracts for services. They did not know that it was there. They had some conversations during their Dome Day and put that idea out, asking for $750,000. It was not something in the executive budget or the DHHS, DHHS request specifically, but it was put in there by somebody. We have not figured out who it was. The House put in $750 and went to conference and came out at $500,000. So that is a pleasant surprise, but it's a mystery that we're still trying to unravel here. So those are some new dollars that are nice to see going out into the field. Have not been clear as to how those are going to be allocated, if that's new agencies or if that's going to be spread across the existing agencies, or if that's actually going to be used for some internal administrative positions yet. So don't have full clarity on that. Let's see. Also, just wanted to mention that there was something that the governor put in his budget relating to a cap on TANF spending with respect to DHHS expenditures, and that did not make it through the House, Senate, or conference. So there is no cap, which is good news. With respect to homeless programs per diem, there was a formal request that was made by us and other organizations about increasing the per diem for shelter program to $20 per bed night. It's currently at $16. For those of you who remember, we did put in a request last year with others that it be increased from a long-standing $12 per diem up to $16. And there was an intent actually to go higher than that last year, but that was put on the back burner. So the request was made again this year, and it did not make the cut. It actually went into the conference, and there were no additional dollars added this year, unfortunately. So those are some of the highlights. Laura, was there anything else that we talked about previously that I didn't touch on? Okay. So let's move on. Past appropriations, unless anybody has any issues, any questions, or any allocations that they're aware of that I missed. Okay. So talking about the Medicaid work requirements, did you want to talk about that, or you want me to do it, Laura? I can continue on, but I didn't know if we were tag teaming. I don't want to take all your glory.
No. If you're prepared, go for it.
Okay. Well, the Healthy Michigan Plan Work Requirements is the actual title that's being given to it, but we're really talking about Medicaid and the work requirements. Most of you should have heard about the potential addition of having work requirements. That's something that's been talked about at the federal level as well as the state level, tying that to benefits that people are receiving. So a bill was introduced by Senator Mike Sharkey, Bill 897, that in effect will require that able-bodied, quote-unquote, adults enrolled in the Healthy Michigan Plan, which is the access to the Medicaid fund, work a minimum of 80 hours per month in qualifying work activities. There are a lot of exclusions for that. People under the age of 20 who were previously placed in foster care. It includes pregnant women, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of people would be excluded from that requirement. But nonetheless, it will have an impact on those that are accessing services. They will be allowed 3 months of noncompliance in a 12-month period. And after that, they will lose coverage for each month that they're not compliant with that 80-hour work requirement. One thing that I don't have clarity on, and maybe Laurel, you or Jason know more about this, but I've not heard about the definition of qualifying work activities. So that may be something that we'll want to look at and report back on. Well, actually, I see it on the end there. So employment or self-employment, or having income consistent with being employed or self-employed, education, including high school equivalency test preparation, job training, vocational training, unpaid workforce engagement, including internships. I'm not sure what that specific definition is there for unpaid workforce engagement, how formal it needs to be, and tribal employment programs. So those are the things that are allowable by this definition.
As well as participation in substance use disorder treatment and community service.
Yeah, so that's not in the qualifying work activities. That's just another definition. But yeah, it is.
It's on the next page.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Oh, I don't have that page. That's why.
Gotcha.
It ended there. Gotcha. Anything else on the Medicaid?
Yeah.
Just
a couple other points. The governor did sign this. There was, a lot of movement from advocates who opposed this, as well as in the House and the Senate where it started. And then that was directed towards the governor. He had indicated displeasure with the original bill, but seemed to be happy with the substitutes and the amendments that have come through. Since this is now signed, it's going to take place. The House Fiscal Agency has estimated that there will be a 5 to 10% drop from the 540,000 non-exempt able-bodied recipients, which means that we will be seeing a decrease in those who qualify and are able to receive access to Medicaid because of this, which will obviously have an impact on how we are able to provide additional resources and help for the clients that we serve. So overall, not a great thing. We're disappointed that it's moving forward, but it's not surprising given the nature of work requirements and what we're being seen introduced at the state and the federal level.
And I guess the only good news is that the original number of hours was, I think, 29 was being discussed, 29 per week, which would have really put a burden on many people. So we'll see how this works out. I'd like all of you to pay attention to it, though, going forward. If you're in a position where you can monitor how this impacts the people that you are working with, please feel free to pass that along to us. Even anecdotal stories would be helpful for us to have a better sense of where the rubber hits the road in communities and whether or not you're seeing, or the agencies that you represent are seeing a significant negative outcome as a result of this.
Denise, I see your question. Denise is asking, has anyone done a study on the cost of tracking these folks? And I will say that the legislation is modeled off of other states that have done this. It's not been tested enough for us to really have some solid numbers. The bill does require that DHHS will conduct surveys to determine the number of individuals who are no longer receiving the benefits as a result of obtaining both employment and medical benefits and the number and type of exemptions granted. So they do have built in a requirement. The DHHS tracks this. I don't see a dollar amount necessarily. I'll have to go back through the fiscal impact and see if they have identified the dollar amount. But there are definitely some administrative costs that have been added to this. They are still estimating that this will see a cost reduction for the state and a savings. So the cost does not outweigh the benefit that the state will receive from those 5 to 10% of the recipient population falling off. But I can look into that further and see if there's a dollar attached specifically to that tracking of the system.
Excellent question. Any other questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, let's move on to Social Security, rental security deposit increase. This is something that we all, I think, need to be paying attention to, because what in fact would do is increase the amount of security deposit maximum from 1.5 months rent to 2 months rent plus $100. So currently landlords are able to require 1.5 months rent, and so you're seeing a significant increase. So want us to pay attention to this, because right now it has, how far along has it gotten?
It was just introduced a couple of weeks ago. It was not heard in committee before they took a recess. I'm not sure. I've seen some editorial pieces. Yeah, I've seen some news coverage of it, but I haven't seen from an insider perspective how likely this is to move forward. But what we plan on doing at MICA is coordinating some meetings with the sponsor, and if it comes to committee, organizing some testimony, because this is obviously something that will impact clients, and we want to make sure that it doesn't move forward. It's just a bad bill for low-income folks.
I think the conversation that needs to take place is a question of what issue is it trying to solve, and I'm not sure that this will have the intended outcome and will have more adverse impact than anybody who is supporting this would understand. Certainly, we understand the needs of landlords and trying to ensure that they can be held harmless whenever possible when there are damages that are done. But likewise, we also understand on the other side that, as many of you know, quite often tenants are actually, I don't want to say taken advantage of, but are not being treated in a way that they should be with respect to their security deposits on the back end. And so when a landlord is in control of those dollars, it's a little bit more difficult to get those from a landlord. And so this would provide, I think, an increase in those types of issues arising. But I think more importantly, we're talking about the difficulty that people have in trying to access housing and trying to ensure that they have adequate funds for a deposit. And so if you're thinking in terms of moving from one place to another, you don't necessarily have your deposit in hand from your current residence that you can apply towards a new deposit at a new residence. So if we just do the math on it, we realize how much this will create a burden and an unnecessary burden to those who are at the lower end of the income scale, who already are burdened when it comes to accessing affordable housing. So this is something we want to keep an eye on and be active with, and would hope you would as well.
Yeah, we'll be putting out some more information depending on how far it moves and how quickly. I don't see any other questions about state updates. Is there anything else that you want to add, Eric, besides these?
Not that I have.
Okay.
Federal updates. Rescission cuts. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the fact that there was an attempt to basically claw back on some of the spending bills that had passed at the federal level, and those were rebuffed. The Senate was not interested in making some cuts to claw back on some of those appropriations. So that actually is good news for us. So I think we can breathe easily for the upcoming year with respect to the funds that were allocated for the upcoming year. So, you know, we have to pay attention. There are always those opportunities for that to change, but right now I don't think that the conditions are such that it would.
I think they've missed the deadline now to vote on it again, so I think that this specific ask is going to be, is not a threat anymore, but like you said, could always come back.
That's right. They had to vote on it by June 22nd. So, good. Thank you for that. Let's see, HUD work requirements. Just wanted to comment on that for those of you paying attention. There was some language being bantered about from the upper echelon in HUD about adding some work requirements for eligibility, and so that had a lot of negative feedback, and so there has been some backing off from that. Don't know whether or not that will rear its ugly head again, but that is something that was a bullet that was dodged, so let's just pay attention to that one.
It was not included in the appropriations process, so the House and Senate at least don't appear to have any interest at this point in including it through the congressional route. And it looks like Carson is backed off with some of the rhetoric on it.
Okay, Agriculture and Nutrition Act, the Farm Bill. You probably heard that in the second go-around it actually passed, and in that...
In the House.
In the House, right. I want to find my language. Laurel, do you have a language right there about the impact?
I have seen that anywhere from 400,000 to 2 million individuals will lose their benefits through this.
Because again, that's expanding work requirements.
Correct. Oh, that language. Yeah. So what this says is that there's already work requirements that are part of the current SNAP legislation that is due to expire in September. So this farm bill has to be renewed every 5 years, I believe. This version of it that's been passed through the House, which was strictly through party lines, would require stricter work requirements and stronger penalties. It also tries to, again, kind of bring in some of the language that we're seeing at the federal level about self-sufficiency, trying to encourage and promote self-sufficiency by, instead of putting dollars into SNAP, putting dollars into government-run workforce development programs and education programs. So there's definitely some concerns with the way that this whole thing is packaged. The Senate side, the Senate does have a version that's slightly different. It is not slightly, it is very different. It has bipartisan support. It actually increases investments in SNAP, and it provides some streamlining and some much needed kind of additional resources to make sure that the existing system is actually helping and reaching the people that it needs to reach. It does not have any more strict work requirements than are already in existence in the current SNAP and Farm Bill legislation. So the House bill passed last week. Senate, I believe, will be taking up their version of it, which both of these are linked in the PowerPoint in the presentation. So right now there is a call for people to call their senator and let them know that you support the Senate version. When it comes to committee, we do have Stabenow that will be on that committee, so we have a little bit of weight in trying to make sure that the issues that we see as affecting our clients will be pushed forward and supported through Stabenow and through the conference process.
Great, thank you. The last item was the Homeless Children and Youth Act of 2070. It was introduced, and it's been hanging around a little bit. This is actually, I believe, a reincarnation of something that was introduced 3 or 4 years ago, approximately, maybe a little bit longer than that. Just a simple assessment on it, it's really talking about trying to make definitions match up at the federal level. Most of you are probably aware of the fact that the definition that's used by HUD does not align with the definition that is used by the Department of Education. This would, in essence, be requiring HUD to modify its definition to align with the Department of Education's definition, and I guess any other department that is using an alternate definition would then come into alignment so that you would have consistency with respect to eligibility for programming. Just want to bring this up. Don't know how much traction this has. But
actually, if I could cut in, I just received an email from Kate White, thank you, who's on the call. She's with Michigan Community Action, who supports this bill. The update she gave me is that this is gaining momentum and now scheduled for markup this Wednesday in the House Financial Services Committee.
Great, thank you, Kate, for that. The thing that we need to be paying attention to is the argument that had been made in the past, which I think was a compelling argument that actually prevented this from getting traction in the past, has to do with the fact that it would be, in essence, putting more more clients in the pool without actually increasing the amount of funding. And Kate, you may be aware of it, but I've not heard about any funding that would be tied to this or an expectation of additional dollars would be made available to address the additional caseloads, basically, that many programs would be experiencing. So I think that will be the conversation going forward as to whether or not then there would be enough political will to look at funding that would be necessary to not leave anybody out by bringing new people into services based on that new definition or the alignment of definition.
And Kate, feel free to let us know if you would like. I can unmute you if you have any updates that you would like to give on that, or if you just want to send us any information. I know that this is a bill that you guys are following closely along with your partners. And I'm not seeing any questions or comments on any of our federal updates. Just a reminder that they are still talking about the fiscal year 19 budget. We didn't include any information about that at this time just because there's so many other things happening at the federal level that we're following. But that is something that we're always going to be keeping our eye on with regards to funding for homeless services.
Yeah, this isn't on the agenda, but I just wanted to mention that the National Alliance to End Homelessness conference is coming up in July, and there will be a Capitol Hill Day event scheduled, as there always is. And so we are currently scheduling appointments with members of our congressional delegation. So hope to have some representation with some face-to-face dialogue with folks from around the state meeting with their elected officials. So we'll keep you posted on that and give a report back at the next meeting about what we encounter with our visits.
So seeing no questions or comments, we'll go ahead and move up to the next item on the agenda, which is just our chance to let you know about some things that we're doing here at MICA, things that you can participate in and things that we'll be sending out information about. The first one is our candidate survey. Aaron, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. We're currently in the process of preparing our candidate survey, which for those of you who aren't familiar, is something that we have done every 2 years. Originally, we did it just with the state level offices, House and Senate. The last time through, we actually expanded it to congressional candidates. But the idea is that we're sending out a survey to candidates. It's going to be post-primary, so we're going to be looking at the candidates from the main parties, getting the survey. The intent is to put homelessness out in front of them first and foremost, but secondarily, we also want to find out what they know about the issue of homelessness and related issues, which will help inform us and also folks at the local level who may want to engage with those candidates to have a better understanding of where there may be some gaps or where there may be some potential allies based on how they communicate out in the survey. The results from the survey are going to be distributed to all of the local continuum of care bodies as we receive them. The hopes are that those local bodies will be able to reach out or otherwise communicate with those candidates to start building relationships so that if they are elected, even if they're not, to begin some dialogue with them, let them know who people are in the community related to the issue of homelessness as go-to people for information to help them with their policy making decisions. This is an opportunity for you at the local level to be sharing what's happening on the ground and to get your input in about the issue of homelessness so it's on the radar screen. So we'll keep you posted on that.
And if I can chime in, we've, as Eric said, done this every general election. The results have kind of varied in terms of responses. I think that if anybody has strong relationships with candidates, as Eric said, it'll be after the primary, so just for the general election. If you have strong relationships with candidates, we could absolutely use that kind of insider push to get them to fill out the survey. Our hope is that we'll have a really good base of knowledge for those incoming for the state legislature this year. So let us know if you want to help us out with getting that, getting a higher participation level in your community from your candidates.
Moving on, sleep out.
Yeah, so just wanted to give a quick update. We did this last year as part of our Homeless Awareness Week activity. We held a sleep out in November at our across the street from our state capitol at Lansing City Hall grounds. We targeted elected officials as a way to try and raise awareness and participation with decision makers. We also had some locally elected officials and other stakeholders participate. It was a small group, which was purposeful. We wanted to be able to manage the participation and really have a strong engagement from participants. We wanted to not only provide an opportunity for them to spend a night outside unsheltered in Michigan winter, but also have a lot of dialogue and conversation around services and programs and opportunities and ways that we can bring solutions to them at the state level. And so we did have 4 state legislators and 1 local elected official participate. We want to do that again this year as just the next step for our engagement with elected officials. And because of the election cycle, we're looking at doing it earlier in the year, targeting end of September, perhaps early October. And we really want to bring in candidates. We see this as an opportunity for them to try and get some media attention, which is obviously very desirable for a candidate during that time of the year. So we recognize that that is a big draw for candidates to participate, but we're going to try and make sure that we're making it a meaningful opportunity for them to understand and engage. So this year, early fall is when we're targeting. Same kind of population. I think it would be very helpful. Again, anyone who has strong relationships with candidates in their community. It is going to be in Lansing, but we want it to be statewide, so we want to bring in candidates from all over the state to participate. And so we may be calling on you to help us send out the invitation if you have connections to make sure that they're participating. And we will be sharing more information as we get further along in the planning details. Jason, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
You had all the highlights.
Yeah, we had some cool media coverage. We had some good images come out of it last year. It really is it's an activity that we see a lot of organizations hold throughout the country and in Michigan. So it is a fun event that also meets our needs of trying to get people to pay attention and care about homelessness issues.
Thank you. Homeless Awareness Month. Jason has rested his voice after having a front end portion of this meeting. You want to give us an update?
La 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 la. So first off, the biggest change that's happening is that we have finally gone all in, and it is going to be Homeless Awareness Month as opposed to Homeless Awareness Week. Primary reason for doing that is that we had a lot of communities here in Michigan for a variety of reasons that opted to have events all the way through the month. So we figured let's embrace the chaos. This does mean that we will still partner with the national campaign as well, but we're also breaking off on our own in terms of messaging, and we're going to come up with our own theme for this year. But it's a resource sharing. We will try to tap in and make sure that folks have access to the resources that the national campaign's created as well. So along the lines of making sure that we're moving things forward, we are going to be holding a webinar as we've done the last couple of years, but we're going to bump the timetable up by about 2 months this time around. So look for the second half of July. We'll be doing our What Are You Doing for Homeless Awareness Month webinar, and we'll have hopefully a lot of the folks that participated last year participate again this year, and that way we can kind of prime the pump and get people thinking about the types of activities that they want to offer, such as a sleep out or organizing a Project Homeless Connect event, or whatever big event you want to do to raise awareness and get public attention about the issue in your community.
If I can just add one thing, if we're thinking in terms of advocacy, so under the umbrella of this committee, one of the things that I think is a value of the observance is that you can reach out to elected officials. So if you look at the city council or county commission, et cetera, these are opportunities to have them pass a resolution in support of the observance, et cetera. But it can give an opening to some dialogue about the issue in the units that they are representing. So that can grease the wheels for
and along those lines, we have a toolkit that was radically updated last year that has templates like local resolutions, things like that, that other communities have been using across Michigan. And the thing that we really changed up last year in terms of kind of piloting was creating a support group on Facebook. Since then, we've actually gotten a lot of interest during the last couple months, so kind of in between time here, with folks who have been asking to join that group. It is a private group, so it's you have to put in a request, but Laurel and I who are the admins, so we're pretty quick to respond and approve folks and get them up and running.
I have yet to decline anyone's ask, or
I think you declined one.
Have you?
Yeah, I declined one.
Oh, Jason's the hardliner.
I am always. So that's the other thing that we're really going to be pushing this year is we do see that as an opportunity for folks to share resources. Despite the fact that it was advertised as being around Homeless Awareness Week last year, we've actually had a handful of communities talk about organizing events here in the spring, this past spring, and they were able to ask questions of the folks in the group about where they might be able to find resources. So we know that it does work when folks are looking for info. Yeah, we just need to beef it up and also get a better sense of what other types of information folks would find useful. So look for more information about that. We'll obviously be sending out invites. And
actually, the link on the PowerPoint, if you download it, or if you received the email agenda, the link on Homeless Awareness Month takes you to the Facebook group, so you can go ahead and ask to join just through that link.
So there you go. But as we ramp up the PR around Homeless Awareness Month, we'll be including it. You'll be seeing it in more and more emails. So any questions?
Doesn't look like we're getting any questions right now, but I know we had a couple people who had some things they wanted to share about what was happening locally. So if we want to move on to
the calls to action, so we're going to move on to the next item.
So if you're paying attention and engaged on this webinar, go ahead and raise your hand or somehow indicate to me that you would like to share something. This is your opportunity to talk about what's happening in your community, if there's any kinds of calls to action or advocacy opportunities that are happening that you would like us to know about and like the other people on the call to know about. As I said, it looks like a couple of you on that original poll at the beginning of the webinar said you had something you wanted to say. So I can unmute you, you can type something in. Unmuting may be the fastest, but I'm not seeing anyone indicate by raising their hand or typing something to me that they would like me to unmute their mic. So we'll give you guys just another second or two because I don't want to prevent anyone from sharing something that's happening at the local level. Do you have anything to talk about while we wait for someone to raise their hand? No?
The tigers are slumping. I've got nothing to say.
All right. Thank you, Kate. I see your comment about the Homeless Children and Youth Act. I will send that email out to the group. Kate's just asking that we share some information that we verbally shared, but we'll email that out to the group. Anyone else have anything that they'd like to talk about? I know that communities are doing strong advocacy all the time at the local level, so those are the kind of things we would like to learn about and celebrate and cheer you on. Okay. I'm not seeing anything at this time.
So anything beyond advocacy updates that anybody wants to share that things that the group might want to hear about? This is an open forum, so we have plenty of opportunities. Anyone? No, I guess not. Quiet bunch.
We've offered this in the past and we'll do it again. If you have something that you would like us to share by email, send it to me or to Eric. I think he's the one whose email address is attached to the invites for this, and mine is the one that's attached to all the webinar registration. So you should have both of our contacts. If you share with us by email anything that you want to go out to the larger group, we'd be happy to do that. And Kate has already asked us to do that, so you'll be getting an email from us on the Homeless Children and Youth Act. Okay.
Awesome. So with that, I guess I will just say thank you all for participating, for joining us, and for commenting and offering questions, etc. look forward to continuing our work with you, and feel free, as Laurel said, if anything comes up you think the group might want to know about, pass it along. Otherwise, we'll plan on talking to you on July 30th, which is...
July 23rd.
Did I say 30th?
Yeah.
I'm looking at 23rd, and I said 30th. I'm just trying to find out who's paying attention. July 23rd, everyone. We will see you then. So until then, enjoy your summer.
Thank you.